Good morning, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started with today's webinar. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Inventor 2020, not 2020, Inventor 2021 release of the software. And let's take a look to see some of the new features, some of the new workflows, and some of the things that are going to make our jobs a little bit easier, or maybe show us some new ways of doing things. So a little bit of an introduction to start us off. My name is Jared Bowser. Many of you know me, seen my webinars or met me in person. Maybe have been in a training class with me at one point or another. Senior application engineer at Mesa, and I've been with Mesa for 12 years. You can see the picture there. My beautiful family of girls, Kyla and Emma, they're growing up fast. They both just had their birthdays a couple weeks ago. They are now 5 and 3. Yeah, they're definitely growing fast. All right, so before we get into the meat of the broadcast here, I did have a poll for you. So you should see that now. And I'm just curious what version of Inventor you are currently using. Maybe some of you have already jumped up to Inventor 2021, or maybe still on 2020. Maybe using an older version yet. Or maybe not even using Inventor yet, but you're here because you'd like some more information, like to see what it's all about. Give that another minute to collect some more responses. All right, so we're looking at about, it's almost even, about a 57% are using 2020 and 43% are using 2019 or previous version. It doesn't look like anybody that responded is using Inventor 2021 yet. So that's actually pretty cool. So everything that I show you will be brand new for everybody. Let's go ahead and close that poll. So this is my wordy slide, but this is just some high-level stuff, what's new with Inventor 2021. I'm not going to read through all of this, but the big categories here are customer-driven improvements, which we'll talk about in just a moment, using that user community, using that idea station, professional-grade functionality, more and better workflows, and as always, more fixes, improved stability, quality, and even performance. Every single release, we're talking about upgrading your performance, making the software faster on its own, which is pretty nice. All right, let's start off with the idea station topic. I bring this up in every webinar and just about every presentation I do, but this is important. This is where the ideas come from. This is where these new features, these new workflows, this is where everything comes from. So the Inventor Idea Station, which we've talked about before, it's available through your Tools tab, Inventor Ideas. You can even do a Google search on that to find it. But the Inventor Idea Station is a user forum where any one of us as Inventor users can go submit an idea, something that we'd like to see in the software. Maybe it's a brand new workflow, a brand new feature, or maybe it's a simple improvement on an existing feature. So we can all go out there, we could submit our ideas, we could take a look through some of the ideas that have been submitted, and if you like what you see, as you can see on my screenshot down here in the bottom right, there's a vote option where you can log in and you can vote for that idea. The Idea Station is managed and ran by the Inventor development team. So they see it all. They even communicate with you. You have the ability to add a comment onto some of these ideas. Maybe you have a similar idea, but a little bit different. You could submit a comment to that idea. And when ideas get enough support, the development team will see that and hopefully make that into a future release of the software. Brings me to my next poll, and this is curiosity for me. Bear with me a second. I'm curious if any of you have used the Idea Station. You have used the Idea Station, you submitted ideas, maybe one of your ideas has been accepted. Maybe you've just been on there to browse for and vote for different ideas. So it looks like just over half of you have not used it, which makes me wonder why you're here, since you're already completely happy with the software as it is. About 30% of you have submitted ideas, which is awesome, and another 14–15% of you have browsed and voted on different ideas. That's great. That's really what the community needs. That's what the developers need. They need you to get up to that Idea Station. Even if you just take a couple minutes and you just scroll through the first page or two of the newest ideas, maybe once a week or once a month, and hit vote on a couple of those. Well, like I said, if you do have an idea, get it up there. Maybe one day we'll be presenting on one of your ideas on the software. All right, let's take a look at what's next. I also like to talk about the Autodesk desktop app and the updates, which is where all of your updates come from. As many of you know, the way that Autodesk is releasing updates, and this is true for Inventor and the other softwares as well, is you'll get your yearly release. Right now we're looking at Inventor 2021, but then you'll get incremental releases. So you might get a small release, which might be, like for example, you're seeing on the screen there, 2019.4.6, or more of a sub-release, not really a major release, but maybe like your 2019.4, for example. So there's going to be the different updates in your desktop app, which is always available from your system tray. And if you're within Inventor, you can see my two screenshots on the right show you, if you go to that Help drop-down menu in the top right of your screen, and go down to About Autodesk Inventor, you could see what build, what release you're currently running. That screenshot's slightly old. I believe it's 2021.0.1 is the latest and greatest. I took a screenshot before I did the update. But you can always take a look to see which update you're running. Check your desktop app, see if there's any updates for you. Typically with the tiny releases, the .4.6, that's more of just bug fixes and things like that, some minor issues. The sub-releases, the 2019.4, the 2020.1.2, those are going to include new features as well as those bug fixes, those minor fixes, and things like that. So you might get a few new features throughout the release year that you don't have at the beginning of the year. It's always worth it to keep up to date. All right, so let's take a look at some general enhancements. We'll run through some general enhancements. We'll run through a couple sketch and part enhancements as well. We'll take a look at a couple of those in a live demo format, and then we'll switch back to the PowerPoint to do some assembly and some drawing enhancements. So this one, starting off with, is the Highlight New. This debuted a couple releases ago, but it's just a nice little tool that's on your Get Started tab. You could turn on and turn off at whenever you need to. The change that they made in 2021 is that it only is going to show you major releases for previous versions. So you're not going to really get down into the different sub-releases for 19 and 20. You'll be able to do that for 2021, but the previous versions are only going to show the major releases. So these are definitely helpful whenever you're just getting started in the new release. It's going to show you that little dot there to let you know something's been updated and give you an indicator there so you know what you're looking at. Here's a pretty nice one that has been on the wish list for quite a while, is a dark release. And you can see a little GIF action there showing you how it's going to look. We'll take a look at that in a live demo for that in a moment as well. So the light theme was pretty nice that they came out with last year, but this dark theme, like I said, a lot of people have been asking for this, and they finally come through with it. It is on pre-release, as you can see in that screenshot, which basically means they're looking for feedback on it. So if you're using it and you have any feedback, definitely submit that in. There's some new options on saving in Inventor. So this is really coming down to when you're opening a file and you're looking at it, and maybe you don't even feel like you did anything, and you close that file and it asks you to save a bunch of things. I know we've all been there, but what we're looking at now is the ability to go into our application options and to do some default conditions, and then have just more information in our save dialog boxes as well. So it's going to break up the save into all the different categories of save, what type of saves we're looking at with the default setup. And then when you get to your save dialog box down here at the bottom of the screen, it's going to let you know these files need saved, and here's the reason that they need saved. So was it saved for a file resolution change, a migration, or was there manual updates, a property update? Whatever the case may be, it's going to let you know here's what changed, here's why Inventor feels like you should be saving this. A new update on the iLogic side is to capture the current state. And you can see what we're doing here on the drawing side of this is accessing information about the edge that's highlighted there, which is then going to allow us later on down the road to build code around that to dimension to it, for example, or to use that in the dimension setting. And one more on this slide is the Configurator 360. If any of you are using Configurator 360, it's no longer installed by default with Inventor. You will need to download that from the Autodesk App Store. I want to throw that in there in case anybody is using Configurator 360. It's going to be a handful of new property panels that you're going to see in the 2021 software. So we saw the whole command was the first one, and then in the 2020 release we had a few more, including extrude and revolve, and a couple other ones. Now we got a whole group of new ones that are coming in the 2021 release. I really like these things. I like that I can dock them into my browser on the left-hand side, which just frees up my screen, my space for the model itself. I don't have dialog boxes floating around, popping up in odd spots every time I go to use one of them. So a lot of new property panels are going to be showing up in the software. There's a breadcrumb update. As you can see in the screenshot, the GIF action happening there in your properties panel for the extrude, allowing you to click that sketch line at the top, and it'll switch you over to the sketch tools itself. So you can make an adjustment to that sketch if you need to. You can get back to the feature by clicking the extrusion itself, or by clicking that arrow in the top right-hand corner of the screen to return to extrude. Nice little update there. And one more general enhancement on the AnyCAD side is the ability to bring in Revit 3D data as a reference into your Inventor assembly. So one of the new features, AnyCAD, that has been out for quite a few releases now, which allows you to reference in models from other software platforms, maybe including SolidWorks and some of the other ones. That allows you to reference it into your assembly. And the cool thing is it maintains all of its original links so that if that model file was ever updated, it's going to update automatically in your assembly. Now we have the ability to do that with Revit 3D data. So if you're working with a colleague or a customer who has Revit 3D data, for example, what we're seeing here, where we're referencing in the building so that our team can design the deck hanging off the side of the building there. All right, just a couple quick little sketch and part enhancements before we jump over to the Inventor side and look at a few of these. One is the horizontal constraint shortcut, which uses the dash key on your keyboard to start a horizontal constraint. And the other one is the reference dimension, which is available from your dimension flyout, has been renamed to select feature dimension. And that's pretty cool, because before I didn't know if I'd really ever used that, but now that I see what it does, it's a pretty useful tool. And I'll demonstrate that in a few moments as well. If you're using the Unwrap command, you're going to get a couple updates in the Unwrap command. You're now able to select multiple planar holes to be rigid. You're also able to rename the Unwrap feature. And you're able to align your results to an origin point. A couple new nice little features in that Unwrap command. If you're unfamiliar with the Unwrap command, what the Unwrap command does is it's a tool to help you flatten out shapes that maybe you get from another software package that Inventor might have had a hard time with in the previous versions. The Unwrap command is going to help you out with those. It works pretty well from the demos and the examples that I've seen of it. If you're using the 3D Annotate tools, one enhancement on that side is the ability to add custom parameters into your leader text or your general notes. And on the sheet metal side, this is a nice new enhancement, allowing you to create a flange with an angle, or the new part of that is by a reference. So you could select a planar face to reference, or you could select a work plane, like is what's shown on the screenshot there. So we'll take a look at that a little bit more in detail in a few moments. All right, let's switch over to Inventor and take a look at a couple of these. So to start off with, I just have my home screen brought up in Inventor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to my Tools tab and go to my Application Options. And let's take a look at a couple of things that I started off with. First of all, switching from light theme to dark theme. I'm on my Colors tab, as you can see here. And I'm going to go down to UI theme and switch over to dark. It's going to let me know that it continues to be enhanced based on my feedback. I could click Details on that to learn more. I can go ahead and click Continue, and I'll click Apply. This takes just a quick moment to switch over to dark theme. Click OK for that one first. Nope, still thinking. Just crashed on me. Nope, that's back there. There it is. Hit on me. All right, so now I got my dark theme showing up. All right, back into Application Options. Let's take a look at a couple of the other things in here. So I'm going to switch over to my Save tab and take a look at the new options on my Save tab. So it's going to break it down to just set the default conditions based on what's going on. So for example, if you're just dealing with a migration, is it going to prompt you to save? What's the default condition for that? And then other options, user edits, API changes. And if you're not sure exactly what one of those means, you can always come down here and hit this help button. Let's take a look at that. And it's going to take us out to the right page, and it's going to give us a little bit more information there on what each of those prompts is asking for or it's looking for. Switch back over to Inventor. Just a moment. I'm going to close out of this, and I'm going to open up my first part that we're going to take a look at. And the first thing I want to show you guys is that breadcrumb update that I talked about. So I'm going to edit the extrusion for that, my first feature here. And taking a look at this, if I decide I want to make an edit to the sketch itself, I can simply click on the sketch 2, and it'll switch me into sketch mode. Then I could take a look at this feature, maybe make that 1.5. When I'm done with that, I got two options. I can come up here and click that return to extrude, or I can go right back to my dialog box and click my extrude on my property panel. Let's get that over there into the browser. So a quick click to get over to the sketch side of that to make a change, and then switch back over to the extrusion to get back into that. Let me bring my end of part marker down so we can see my sketch 3. What I did with my sketch 3 is I want to edit that, and I want to put a diameter dimension on this. So I'm going to find my dimension tool, and I'm going to place that, and I'm going to click my little right hand arrow here and go to this renamed option, select feature dimension. I'll go ahead and click that. I'll click my upper feature, and then I'll click my diameter to match them up with. And the nice thing about that is you can see the FX there letting you know that there's a function happening, so it is linked. Then I can finish that sketch and create this new feature. Okay. Let's switch over to this flange part. So with this flange part, all I did so far was just create a simple face. I also threw in a work plane, which I believe, if I remember correctly, is 60 degrees off of that edge. So let's take a look at the updated flange command. So in the flange command, I'm going to go ahead and select my edge first. And if I switch this back to by value, this is what we're used to seeing, where we have to input a dimensional value there. Right now it's set to 90 degrees. Maybe I'll go up to 45. Back to 90. I can then use the by reference. So with the by reference, I could select a planar face. So I could select that top face to make it, which happens to be 90 again, or I could select this work plane that I created in here, and that'll create it at exactly the angle of that work plane. I can then use my bend position if I want to switch that to a different location on that flange, and I'll create that as it is. So nice handy little tool there if you have a work plane to use. Maybe you created the work plane like I did, or you did a copy object, for example. So if you have another part that this is matching up to, you could have used a copy object on that other part to bring in the face, and then you can match up that angle perfectly without having to do any math there. Okay. Let's switch back over to the PowerPoint. Got a handful of slides left for you. A few assembly enhancements I don't want to talk about. The first one is the ability to remove multiple overrides if you're dealing with positional representations. This is simple. It's giving you the ability to multi-select those constraints, right-click, and do the remove override. Nice and easy. The next one there, it's pretty nice. It allows you now to switch iAssembly members in Express mode. So if you're dealing with a larger assembly that Inventor opens up automatically in Express mode, you can now go to your iAssemblies and switch between the different members without being forced to open up the full version. Depending on the size of the model that you're working with, you know that forced to open up the full version could take a couple minutes, again, depending on how large that assembly is. New file naming defaults. So we've seen in the past couple releases the ability to change the way file defaults are set up in things like frame generator. Well, now we have more control, and this is back in our application options, which I'll show you in a moment. But this is going to give us more control on the frame generator of how we set up the default naming scheme. Tube and pipe as well, how we set up the default naming scheme for our routes, our segments, our pipes, and also on the mirror and copy command. So you can do some changes to default setting for that, If you use the mirror and copy and you're used to seeing the underscore MIR, the underscore CPY, and you'd like to change that, you can go ahead and do that now. So new ways for file naming default. A couple enhancements on the frame generator side. The first one on top there is the trim to extend now supports curved faces, which is really nice. The cool thing is, which I'm about to show you right now, is that it knows to make it a straight cut. So you click that curved face, you select your pieces that you're going to extend to it in this case. And then when you take a look at that, it's going to give you a straight cut on that piece. The other new feature in Frame Generator is the new notch command profiles. We saw some new notch command profiles, I want to say in the 2020 release, one of the sub-releases. We now have new ones for matching up with C channels and matching up with T shapes. And all those is basically your default. You could set up some presets, or you could customize those individually for when members are joined together and how you want those to match up. A couple new drawing enhancements that I want to talk about. Some pretty cool little things here. The first one I'm excited about, it's the automated center lines, which has always been a command, but I always tell people it's hidden. You have to right click on the view to find it. It now gets a spot on the ribbon at the top. So there's an automated center line button there. The other option, which is new, I believe this used to be in the drawing side, but it was taken out and now it's back, is the measure command on the tools tab. So if you want to do a measure on your drawing, but you don't want to use the dimension command, you can now do that. If you deal with referenced parts on your drawings, you have a few new options for how those look. You have display styles for them. You can see that screenshot on the top right. To show the edges as reference and make them shaded, show the edges as parts and make them shaded, leave the edges as reference, leave the edges as a part, or simply turn off the display style there. So you get a few options there for how you want your referenced parts to show up on your drawing, just to give you a little bit more control. The GIF at the bottom there is showing you how to align dimensions to a selected edge, or to rotate to a selected edge, where you can get place a dimension and then make it either parallel or perpendicular to an edge that you pick. Okay. A couple more drawing enhancements. I really like this one as well. The diameter symbol has been added to a parallel diameter. So if it recognizes the fact that you're placing a dimension on a round object, using parallel lines is now going to give you that diameter symbol. And I'll show you what I mean in a few moments there. You will always have the option, of course, to turn that off or to switch that back to the other style. Let's take a look at a couple of these. All right, so the first one I want to show you is back into the application options on the File tab. If I go down to the bottom under File Name Defaults, here's where I can find how to set up my custom naming guidelines for things like Frame Generator, Tube and Pipe, and the Mirror and Copy. So if you're dealing with one of these and you want to take a look at how those default names are set up, this is where you want to go ahead and take a look at all that information. All right, let's switch over to my part here, and let's take a look at a couple of these drawing enhancements. So the first one, actually two here that I want to show you. If you use this Create Drawing View option where you right-click on the file name over here in the browser, and you go to Create Drawing View to create your drawing, this dialog box has been updated. Now it shows you your new file dialog box instead of that old style that wasn't very intuitive. This one's much more intuitive. You could pick out your template here, and then what you're seeing over here on the right is if you have within your template, if you have some different presets set up, different configurations, they're going to list over here so you can actually go through and pick one of those to use. We're just going to go with the blank default. Let me show you just a moment here. Let me go ahead and get a couple views set up on this. And we'll go with that one. And then for this one, let's make a section view. Like that. All right, so back up just for a second. If you had some different sheet formats set up within your template, that's what that screen that I showed you. If I go to my new drawing to get back to it. All right, so interesting. I'll just get a new here. Yeah. So if I go to my drawing, my different sheet formats are going to show up over here on the right-hand side. So if you have custom sheet formats set up that you use at your company, you can now click on those right off the bat, just to give you a couple clicks, get you a couple clicks ahead. All right, let's take a look back at a couple of these commands. First of all, that's automated center lines over on the Annotate tab, automated center lines. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click all three views first, using my control key to select multiple views. Then I'll click that automated center lines. And I get to pick what do I want to apply it to and what type of projection am I looking at. And if you're unfamiliar with automated center lines, I generally just work in this top half of the dialog box. I really ignore everything below that. Everything below that's really just if you have different size radiuses on your part and you wanted to skip center lines on some of those, you could do that with that radius threshold. Same thing with the arc angle threshold. So unless you have anything special like that, just almost for the most part, just ignore everything below. So I'm going to apply this to holes, and I'm going to apply it to cylindrical features, to revolves, and I'm going to turn on projection and in view. And that's my general defaults, at least when I'm teaching a class and showing people how to use that. That's my typical defaults there. And I'll click OK, and that'll place those center lines on my views. Automated center lines has always been a great tool. I'm glad that it gets a spot on the ribbon now. All right, a couple more things to show you. So on the dimension side, one thing that we've always been able to see is this part is round, and if I click this edge, it does give me the diameter dimension. And we've always been able to see that. The difference is, now if I were to pick these two parallel edges, in previous releases, I never got a diameter symbol for those. Now, by default, it is turned on, which is really nice. If I come over here to my section view, same idea. By default, it's going to give me that diameter dimension. If I decide I want to turn that off, though, I can always right-click before I place and go down to dimension type and switch that to parallel. So I get a couple options there. Okay. All right. So that's about all I had for you guys today. I just wanted to show you some of those new features, new workflows in Inventor 2020. Let's take a look at this. We got one more poll question for you, actually. So let's go ahead and switch over to that. It's just kind of a general question. Now that you've seen Inventor 2021, are you excited to upgrade? Are there features in there that you think you can use, that you like? Or maybe there's features in there that you'd like to, or workflows that I showed you that you saw that you'd like to learn a little bit more about. You can go ahead and click that option as well. Nobody's picking no. That's great to hear. Great to see. Okay. Switch back to my slide. I want to show my contact slide there right at the end. So if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, I'm looking at the questions box here. I only see one that somebody was unable to answer a poll question. I'm not sure what happened there. Yeah, I think I had most people were able to, so I'm not sure what happened on your end there. But that's the only question I'm showing up here. So if you have any questions later on thinking about it, feel free to shoot me an email. Feel free to call in if you'd like to our Mesa support line as well. Especially if you want to get upgraded. I don't believe everybody was still using 2020 or previous. So if you want to get upgraded, you want to talk a little bit about how that can work, especially in the times that we're dealing with right now, feel free to give us a call, talk to your salesperson, whatever the case may be. Thank you very much. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Have a good long weekend coming up, and hope to see you guys soon. Thank you.